All right, with all due respect, good evening. Time for that discussion, the big story. There is no other story in this country today other than the cabinet of President William Ruto that has been announced today. My guest tonight to announce them again is Sylvanus Osoro, South Girango MP and Majority Whip, not minority. He's insisted I make sure that I point that out. Anthony Kibagendi, Kitutu Church South MP. Karibu sana. And Bill Okero has no qualms about anyone. He's former senator, Mandera County. Let's, gentlemen, karibu sana to the program. The biggest story tonight is the cabinet by His Excellency President William Ruto. Below, you are the first to give me a quick reaction.
Yeah, I think generally it's my view is, my take is that it's a good cabinet. Look at the background. These people came on the back of a hustler narrative, and if you look at many of the people who have been put there, people who have stood out, political leaders who have stood out for the last few years, you know, on the issues of hustler, you know, people like Moses Kuria, you know, people like Murkomen, people who have been championing that issue of the hustler. So it's now an opportunity for them to deliver, you know, on their pledges to the Kenyans. So I think there is a move away from, if you will, from Uhuru's government, which was more technocrats, you know, to more political. And I think that, in a sense, was clear from the president's speech a few weeks earlier when he said, you know, I want my cabinet members to be in parliament to answer questions. And if you look at, again, the one advantage of this for focus on the politicians is that then they can be in touch with people out there. One of the challenges Uhuru's government had is they were out of touch with reality. Many of his cabinet members, you know, technocrats who were in the offices and had no relationship with the public and didn't know what was going on. And so here we have a team that...
Isn't that what we wanted in the Constitution when we sort of removed, you know, ministers from Parliament? Isn't that the whole point of the 2010 Constitution?
That's why you have to resign. The moment you have been appointed, you cannot be both a member of Parliament and... But it doesn't, the Constitution does not tell you must not have been a member of Parliament. No, you can't be a member of Parliament before, but you should not be serving a member of Parliament. So, but that is very important distinction for me, because one of the challenges we have had with this government is they were out of touch with reality, on the ground, what was going on. And I think when you have people who are political background, who can go back and be in touch and connect with the people, I think that's critical. And I think that seems to be the focus on these appointments.
On the theme, Anton, for you, what are sort of your quick reaction to this?
One is there's a demonstration by the president that when you are loyal to him, he keeps his word. And he's demonstrated this again and again. And other than that, I would also like to say that what we are seeing from this cabinet is that these are people who understand the agenda of the president, because they have been working with him throughout the campaigns. They have been in the trenches with him throughout, especially the last 5 years. But again, there are a lot of integrity issues. Majority of them have questions, you know, have matters in court to do with their integrity and stuff like that. I don't want to name names, but I believe Kenyans understand that. We are hoping when they come to Parliament for vetting, we'll be able to ask them the hard questions before they probably begin their jobs. Yeah.
Sylvanus, I know you're going to say the same thing, so I have to move this
I wanted to make some correction.
Yes.
Sylvanus Osoro is a minority whip. Azimio is majority coalition in Parliament.
Okay. I know he will respond, but where are the hustlers in this cabinet?
First things first, I am the majority whip of the National Assembly, and that explanation will be done possibly at the tail end of this discussion. And I'm very happy that my colleague, Honorable Kibagendi, is proudly taking their role as the opposition or the minority, going by his sentiments today in regard to the appointments and stuff like that. But having said that, number one, generally, what you saw today in terms of appointments is, number one, a face of Kenya. give it to him. The president tried to balance every region. It's actually the face of Kenya. And the other appointments that possibly, and you know, when I talk about the face of Kenya, I do not really mean counties, but at least you would see somebody from Northeastern, you would see somebody from coastal region, you see somebody from Western Kenya, you'll see somebody from the Rift Valley, and you know, across the country. So that is what the Constitution wanted. And that is really what, we must applaud. Number two, you've asked about the face of the hustlers. And I'll say the face of the hustler is not looked at from the face value that you're saying. Government is a mongrel. It's something so huge. It's not something that you just look at it from one angle, from the cabinet only. Hustlers, our description is that any person that has started from low, going up, I mean, really, that is a hustler. The president himself is a reformed hustler. He's a person that started from low and now he's president. What
is a reformed hustler?
He's a person.
This is the first time I'm hearing.
Yes, yes. He's a person that started from low. He's a son of a nobody. Yeah. You know, by nobody I mean he's a son whose father is, he's a person who's making his own history.
So it's not yet a dynasty. That is the reformed hustler. I didn't want to get this definition clearly.
That is true. Yes. He's merely a person whose father is not known. Whose parents have no history of leadership. I mean, he's just, and possibly that was the reason as to why he was really being fought against to win this seat. Now, I am the majority whip from the majority party of the National Assembly. I am a hustler.
Will say allegedly.
I am a hustler. Okay, even if you go by his definition of minority, yes. I am a hustler. Right. The party has believed in me. So there are so many parameters that you look at this whole thing. Not generally looking at it that, you know, get somebody from, Nyakorere village, where I come from, and place him in cabinet. I mean, that description is rigid. We really need to think broadly on even the operations of the cabinet. What is the plan of this government about hustlers? Not just on, appointments and stuff like that.
Okay. Exactly. So some real problems here, and obviously the first thing that we know, the economy was very central to this. We do know that the president and UDA party, Kenya Kwanza, has created what their manifesto called the plan, which we hope that, and I mean, it's what they've insisted that they will be following moving forward. From what you've seen today, say the nomination of the CS for Treasury, is it someone that you have the confidence, first he needs to find 50 billion fairly quickly, right, for the Hustler Fund?
No, it's not going to be a walk in the past. The economy, I'm telling you, they're going to have a rough time. It's going to take a couple of years or more before they can turn around this economy. The situation is, this is an economy on a drip, if you will. The situation is not going to be changed by Professor Ndungu or anyone that fast. But I think Professor Ndungu as an individual probably fits into this this group of hustlers,
reformed hustlers,
nation or whatever, yeah, because he's a soft, amiable character. I think he's someone who is a bit more outgoing and more it's not rigid. When he was in the central bank governor, I mean, you can't compare him with the current governor. I mean, he was, but he was a very social guy. So I think they looked at him from getting somebody whom they can work with, given the background of the kind of people who have been appointed now as cabinet. But I think he has his tray full, I can assure you, because next week a lot of things are happening. In the next 2 weeks, the petroleum thing, the prices will come in. The excise duties, they have to deal with still the issue of food prices and what. Many of these things are affected by the global or external shocks. So I don't think it's going to be an easy thing for them. But I think it's someone that they can work with. I think that is basically what he looked at. Because, for example, now when he came up with this proposed changes on the transactions, value in the central bank, the current governor was not very. So I think he looked at someone who can listen to them and work with them, so that they have that teamwork aspect. I think that's what they have in mind. But the economy is not going to be something that Professor Ndungu will just go to the office and start turning around things in the next couple of weeks. I think they have taken over. Yeah. And there are a lot of things that need to be checked. For example, we've read in the media that in the last couple of months before the election, over 55 billion or some billions have been paid out. You know, there are a lot of things that really need to be examined, because when a government is in transition, you know, there are some transactions that you should not be in a rush to do. For example, making payments on contracts that have not yet been executed, or on things that are still work in progress. I think there is an attempt to try and, you know, conclude some things before this.
Just before time.
Before the, before the handover.
Yeah.
And but the good thing, at least they have going, is that KRA is collecting revenue, so they will be receiving a couple of hundreds of billions every month at least. So they should be able to prioritize. That's the most important thing. Is they have just so much, but they need to prioritize on what they need to do with the little money that they get in the next few months.
Mm-hmm. But
yes, okay. One of the most shocking things today is that we didn't see Najib Balala for the first time in 20 years. Yeah.
He's been campaigning for that job.
Yeah, I saw him immediately after the elections. He was trying to lobby, but I believe he may get something. You never know. One thing I can tell you is that Dr. William Ruto, I've been his advisor in his office, and I know he's very hardworking. He's a worker, and he pushes his team to actually perform. The president understands this government pretty well, and he will be able to push his team to do the right thing. Like Honorable Bilokero has said, it is not going to be a walk in the park. Although, again, the problem with the Kenyans is that they will not understand that it will take a bit of time to turn this around, especially the cost of food that is mainly affected by the cost of fuel. And that is one area they'll need to handle pretty fast. Again, the other thing I've seen a lot of young people talk about is the Hustler Fund, that they are very expectant and they want that affordable credit to start opening up their businesses. And there are a lot of promises that the UDA government the UDA government gave when they were doing their campaigns, from issues to do with turning around the issues to do with food security, job opportunities, and one of the major areas that they need to focus on to create jobs is in housing, and housing is capital intensive, and like we've said, we don't have we are not collecting enough revenue to be able to take care of such so that jobs can be created. So it is going to take 2-3 years before we can really feel that the economy has been...
do you think we have that time? Do you think we are patient that time? To wait
no,
for the
Kenyans are not patient. That is now, Kenyans want instant coffee. And that has been and that is what we are cultured. Yeah. That is how we are cultured. But again, I still go back to issues to do with integrity.
Let's go to integrity questions so that we get it out. What issues do you have with integrity? So most of these members of the cabinet, and we've seen, I think I've seen at least 4 who have cases in court, active cases in court.
Yes.
How do you deal with that as a member of parliament? They're going to be, they'll come to be vetted by you. Yeah,
they'll be vetted by us, and the minority whip knows what happens in the house. Honorable Osoro, congratulations for the appointment, though. So what we are looking at is we have to ask them the hard questions. And of course, even the Kenyans, what I can call the court of public opinion, Kenyans need to ask the hard questions. Somebody has a matter in court related to murder. Some have issues to do with rape. Some have issues to do with embezzlement or misuse of power and stuff like that. And all that needs to be, you know, unearthed so that people get to know the people who are going to be in the cabinet.
Yeah, the most interesting thing about this, Sylvanus, is your side during this campaign said corruption was a non-issue. But you said it was a non-issue. I can bring up clips. But anyway, these people who have been selected today with sort of the personal challenges, how is your side looking at it?
Number one, I'll first tell you that most of the people that you hear Honorable Kibagendi referring to be you know, people who have active cases in court are victims of what I'll call criminal justice system that was being used against them by the previous regime. And I'll also remind Honorable Kibageni and the minority side that there is a presumption of innocence in our, you know, criminal. Our way of, the way the Constitution was drafted is that each person must be given a fair hearing. And that is enshrined in Article 50 of the Constitution. And one really can't, like what he's saying, court of public opinion. That is what we've been subjected to all along in the past 5 years. I've been privileged, by the way, to represent several of those people that you've mentioned, or rather those scenarios that you've mentioned in court in regard to the corruptions and stuff like that. And I can tell you, besides the drama that you see on TV, you know, like, and I'm very happy that Kenoti has left. I mean, he was a drama spy, you know, person who really got excited about the drama, I mean, about the cameras and stuff like that. You get excited, you go arrest somebody, you take them to court with very funny looking charge sheets and stuff like that, but it doesn't proceed from there. But and that is what people have been subjected to.
I hear you,
yes.
I take your point, but there's murder charges as well. Let's even leave graft charges. There's people in murder charges, there's rape cases in there.
No, I'm sure you're talking about Honorable Aisha Juma. And as I've said, there is a presumption of innocence in law. That one can't be just charged by court of public opinion. There is a law. It's an active case in court. But that doesn't stop your life from moving. If I have a case, today as I'm sitting here, by the way, I have a case. I was arrested by, you know, the officers, and I was taken to court and charged 2 counts, by the way, looking in a manner suggesting that I want to destroy, or rather I want to cause chaos when the president came to Kisii under the order of Matiang'i. I was, the other count is that destruction of property, you know, that I stopped my car and, you know, caused some accident on the road and I need to be charged. So all those things, that is an active case that I'm having. But, you know, I am innocent until proven guilty. So the onus lies on those who allege, you know, and that is how, it's not a matter of balance of probability. Honorable Aisha Juma is innocent. She's a very sharp lady, by the way, for those people who do not know. She fits perfectly well in that ministry. And let me tell you, what William Ruto has done is also to bring confidence in our political scene. We've grown telling people that you are, telling young ones that you're leaders of tomorrow. Then you grow up, you demonize politicians. Like, politics is something that is so dirty that once you join politics, you kill your career. People have careers before they join politics. And that career doesn't stop after you join politics. In any case, by the way, it should be adding you on top. It should be a CV. Leading people in my constituency, over 100,000 people who voted for me in my constituency. I mean, I deserve to be a CEO of a big organization like NTV. But I quit politics, I apply for a job in NTV. Never get a job. Because I'm a politician, you forget that I was a leader, leading people in that constituency. So what William Ruto has done is really tried to, you know, what I'll call angelize politics. And I'm very happy with the way he's done. And politics is equally a career that needs to be added.
So to angelize politics.
You know, before the election, there was this case that had gone to court, and that was thrown out. All these people who have now been appointed, and many others who have not been appointed, who campaigned for various elective seats. There was an attempt through Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and other institutions trying to stop them. You remember? Yeah. And the courts did not agree for the same reasons that, you know, unless there's a conviction, then you can't stop under the Constitution anyone from vying for any public office. But I think that the sense of the argument is that if this president had come into power on a platform of zero tolerance to corruption, for example, zero tolerance means whether or not you have been convicted, if you have been implicated in anything like this, sorry, but you know, you can't serve in my government. Then, you know, but I mean, you saw, I mean, you refer to the tweets. I mean, so it's clear that the argument is that we are going by the rule of law. So if somebody has not been convicted, he's innocent. So you cannot hold that, and it happened during the time of Uhuru. You remember the first 5 years when Uhuru tabled those 175 names in Parliament. And he says, let them be investigated because they have been mentioned. If they're cleared, I will bring them back. And many of those guys got cleared and they never got back their jobs. But the damage was done. I mean, the perception that you're corrupt and you're guilty and so forth, and you lost the job and you're fired, I mean, to the family, to them. So, but then ultimately when you're cleared, it's no longer newsworthy. So I think there's a sense in which then that would be agreeable. But in the nation where we are today, which is ravaged by corruption and all this impunity and so forth, you would have thought that the best option would have been to say no, zero tolerance. Let me not, anyone who has been implicated for the moment, let's go for others.
But what's the difficulty in that? Because it appears that's a difficult option. It's
political, what you mentioned, the loyalties, the rewarding political loyalties, rewarding, that's the argument. By the way, even the other side that was riding on a platform of integrity, the argument was within their ranks, the people who were vying for positions had many of those people who had been either convicted or have cases. So the thing is, once you have come a long way, you've got cleared and they ran on your party ticket, you cannot now come and say, sorry, although you got onto the position through my party ticket, but I can't give you this job because, I don't like you. So I think the process should have started during the election when they say, no, anybody who has been mentioned or implicated, you can't get into my party. But none of the parties were willing to do that. So even on the other side, if they came to power, I'm sure anyone who has not been convicted would still find himself in the cabinet.
Would be having this problem.
Yep.
When you look at the specifics, like now, Honorable Senator Murkomen, Kipchumba Murkomen, he's gotten a very, that's a major docket, infrastructure and roads. And especially in my constituency, we don't have an inch of tarmac. Yeah? Wow. Yes.
I thought we are the only ones.
Yet we are the nearest constituency. We only have a highway.
What is the highway? It's a road.
The roads that, like in Osoro's constituency, he has almost 100 kilometers of tarmac just crisscrossing around his constituency. While in our constituency, we have 0, yeah? So we'll be pushing Honorable Senator Kipchumba Murkomen. He's my personal friend, so I'll really push him to try and do something in Kitutu Chache South. And of course, Moses Kuria is another friend that I have on issues to do with trade, although I'm told the SME has been moved to Honorable Chelugui, will be handling that. And that is something very unique. I saw this is something we discussed when I was in the Deputy President's office then, now he's President. A ministry that will manage the small and micro businesses so that they are given the necessary attention and to improve for innovation, affordable credit and stuff like that. And then now again, we are being pushed to have by-elections in the safe spaces for UDA. Honorable Sylvanus Osoro will tell you that is why they had to pick CSs from Rift Valley and Mount Kenya and a bit of northeastern Honorable Duale. They are careful because they know there are areas they cannot do that, yeah, because they'll definitely lose those by-elections. But for those ones, I know they are safe for them. I know they're safe. Although again, in Elgeyo Marakwet, you need to know there are 2 independent elected leaders, the women representative and 1 member of parliament.
Who have aligned themselves to...
unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
What was sort of the political considerations as we got to this and sort of wind up this conversation? What's the political considerations in this cabinet? And you've mentioned, some allude to it. The question of, sort of stretching hand to the side that perhaps appeared to be Azimio and were not perhaps UDA. Do you feel that tonight they will sleep at night and say, well, we are represented in this, sort of face of Kenya, this big government that has been created by Kenya Kwanza?
Yeah, ideally, because I think the president has also been so kind to, display I think he's really been able to display a lot of maturity in his leadership and in his way of doing his thing. Because looking at the face or looking at the list of his appointments, you'll see names like Eliud Owalo. Eliud Owalo comes from Siaya County. Siaya County, the entire county, William Ruto got 3,000 votes in the entire county of Siaya County. I mean, that region. You'll see names like Musalia Mudavadi, you know, who comes from Vihiga. Raila Odinga beat Dr. William Ruto there. You'll see names like Ababu Namwamba. Raila Odinga beat Dr. William Ruto in Busia County, where he comes from. You see? You'll also see names like, you all know the support Honorable William Ruto gave to Amason Kingi for the speaker position in the Senate. But Raila Odinga beat William Ruto in Kilifi County. You'll see names like Mvuria. That is the coastal region, which always has been a preserve of Raila Odinga. You'll see names like Aisha Jumwa, like you see. So ideally, there is a face. Like I said, the president has really tried to make sure that he balances across, regardless of how people voted, including my place, you know, in Kisii County. Raila Odinga beat William Ruto in Kisii County, although not with a big margin like previously, because this time around, Honorable Kimbagendi and his team didn't do much to help Raila Odinga. People are actually tired with him in Kisii. But but once you see that, if you do such balances, nobody feels out of government. Everyone feels we are part of government. You'll see names like Aden Duale. Aden Duale won his seat in that area, in his constituency, with about 9,000 votes. His own vote. Of course, the population there is low. And William Ruto got 800 votes in his constituency. You can imagine, yes. And Raila Odinga got 7,000 in that constituency. But now, he's a minister for defense. I mean, the president has displayed, you know, some magnanimity in...
Let's dive in.
I don't, you know, it's not about magnanimity, it's the Constitution. The Constitution requires that appointments to all these state offices must be based on regional, ethnic, all those considerations are provided for in the Constitution. But of course, the party that came to power must take the lion's share, and they did. I mean, if you look at 50% of the cabinet, nearly 50, is in Mount Kenya and in Rift Valley.
No, that's a lie.
Well, approximately. Well, you can calculate your calculator, but I'm saying approximately. Not 50. When I say 50, is 50, it can be 45, but you'll see
it's actually
10, probably 10 out of the 22 or 23 would be from that. But that's understandable because in every country, if you go to US or France, any country, the government that forms the party, then because they must execute their policies, they have to get their people. The people with whom they share the same policy and the same ideology and the same manifesto into government. But that's fine. But at least those regions that voted overwhelmingly for Kenya Kwanza, I mean, have been amply rewarded. But for the rest of the regions, because of the requirement of the Constitution, you have to also have representation in government. I think that representation is what Osoro is saying.
There's a question here about, you know, promise broken, and this is the 50% of women. What happened to the 50% of women?
It's not broken.
They got the 10.
It's not
they didn't get 10.
They got 10. They got close to 10. You see, you're edging out. No, you're edging out. You see, when we are talking about 50% of government, as I said, we're not looking at it from only one angle. Simply from cabinet. No, it wasn't specific. I was part of the team that signed that charter, and I know specifically what was there.
So women read their own things?
Said, no, they know. They know it is indeed true. But even if we were to go to that direction, cabinet comprises the cabinet secretaries, which is indeed true, that sit within, you know, cabinet. However, the policy makers are also the PSS, not necessarily the people who just sit there. Also PSS. We haven't seen the permanent secretaries' appointments yet. You will see such numbers. Be it as it may, give me, from your records, any president that has given women such space like William Ruto has.
But that's a false
start. With inclusion, there's no false start. When we add other appointments like you've seen and other things that we've been able to mitigate, like Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Sholei, and several others, and you also look at the way
Sylvanus,
it is. You know, there are so many
I'm not
parameters.
disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing. But here's the thing. The president is on record, Kenya Kwanza, saying that my government, my cabinet, will be 50% men,
My
50%.
government, good, you put it well. He said, my government will be 50%. My government. Government comprises of the legislature, comprises of the executive, and also the judiciary. Judiciary right now, as it is, you know that, it's clearly women. It's a women world.
And has
It has nothing to do with Kenya Kwanza. So that's what I'm saying. You look at it wholesomely. You get to my government, I mean, the appointments that you saw.
I think there's a consolation. They got at least 3 senior advisory positions in the cabinet.
3 senior makes it now to 10. And by the way, it's equated to CSS.
Yeah, actually, I want to support my brother, Honorable Sylvanus Osoro. One thing I know about government, appointments are not over yet. Yeah, we still have PSs, and probably we'll have
ambassadors,
CSs, and ambassadors, and secretaries who are equivalent to deputy permanent secretaries and all that. But still, I would have wished to see more women in the cabinet, the actual cabinet. 11 out of 22 would have been a good number, given that
they have 10 now.
Okay.
No, they have 7.
They have 7. The others are their advisors on some
new roles.
New roles,
yes.
Yeah. But that happens. The other thing, by the way, one thing I want to tell those who've been appointed is that while we say the country is in a difficult position economically and stuff like that, we need to also look at issues to do with cohesiveness. You realize the president has tried to balance the way he appointed the CSs, like Osoro said, Honorable Sylvanus said, they are from different parts of the country, and I'm indeed happy to see that Owalo has been appointed into the cabinet. He's one of the people who helped put together the manifesto and the economic forums they were having across the country. He was in charge. The president was not looking at the number of votes one brought. He was looking at what you put in to this campaign in terms of effort, yeah, including even Honorable Duale. Of course, the president may not have gotten enough votes from Garissa, but you know what Honorable Duale has done, and in terms of even perception, by sticking with him, and Dr. William Ruto rewards loyalty, and all these others, even those who have questionable past. Why is when I say that, Honorable Sylvanus gets a little, uncomfortable, but we have to say it as it is. However, all these people, I'm lucky, most of them are my friends. We are hoping when they come to Parliament, we'll ask them a few questions. Those who will make it, we hope to work closely with them.
You can see how Honorable Kibagendi is at pains to try and pose the list, because he clearly knows that there is really nothing much to oppose on, other than pegging on those other things. They've got pending matters in court.
But that's important and that's serious.
It is not important, because...
Why is it not important?
It is not important. Because one is innocent until proven guilty and convicted. By the way, we've had a president for 10 years. And any person who is keen to follow history can tell you that we elected a Kenyan president while facing serious international crimes. Not these cannot matters in court. Serious international crimes. But we elected him. Kenyans elected him as president and deputy president, who is now the president. So those are the things. Now, we also elected a deputy president the other day, who's got Kenoti charges in court, pending. He's our deputy president.
Rigiji.
So the Rigiji. So the presumption, he really likes that name. These are the things that people want to raise about. For us here, Kenyans want to hear, are we going to lower the cost of living?
How soon?
How soon are things going to happen? It's not about who has cases, who was in court, who is supposed to do this. Those are other things that can run independently. Our law did not, really state that that once you are charged, you need to be out. And there's something Senator Billo said that possibly we ought to have looked at that possibly there's a need for review of law, that once you are tried, not in Africa, because that will be misused. That will be misused. Can you imagine somebody is taken to court for merely looking in a manner suggesting that you want to cause chaos in the president's function? Yeah. Those are the charges I'm facing. People will misuse. We are very okay. The civil law legal system that is used in Rwanda cannot apply in Kenya. Although it is in Africa, because the civil law, the other side is that you are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. So the onus lies. And that is what happens in Rwanda. But in this country, you try and do that, then everyone will be in jail. I mean, really, and you get people in power who have some egocentric mindset, then you'll be messy.
All right, Senator Bilokero, the courts have pronounced themselves about the question of CAS, but the president has brought it back for public participation. What are your views on the question of CASs? Should they come back?
In my view, it shouldn't. But I hear there's an appeal in the Court of Appeal, isn't it?
The clarity.
There's a stay order or something.
Yes, the clarity on that is that somebody went to court to challenge the CAS, not on appointment, not on the basis that they ought not to be there, but on the process of recruitment. That there was no public participation, it was not advertised, the jobs were not advertised.
There's a stay order on it now.
Yeah, and now
there's a stay order.
The stay order was to the extent of their service then. But what the president has done now is to align the law. And as he is on record saying that he's got to follow, he'll follow the law. Last week there was an advertisement on paper to invite Kenyans, members of the public, to get their views about that position. If that is passed, then the next step will be advertisement of those positions. Once that is done, that is what was in court. Then he'll do the appointments.
Our constitution is very clear. There is no provision for CSs, absolutely. The only thing in the constitution, there is a loophole somewhere that allows the president to form various offices, establish certain offices.
Through executive
orders. Through executive. This is what they have taken advantage of. But I think in the circumstances in which we are now, in terms of the economy, in terms of, really, you don't want to have, because look at the spirit of the Constitution. The reason why we limited this number of cabinet secretaries to 22 and eliminated all those assistant ministers and CIS and so forth, which were there in the previous Constitution, is because of the cost. So if you now say, you circumvent that and you establish an office, I think you're basically trying to undermine the Constitution in the spirit of the Constitution. So in my view, really, it's not necessary. Absolutely, from those who have served in the last cabinet as a CSs, I don't think it's value added, I'm telling you. There hasn't been value addition, absolutely. No. I mean, you tell me, you will not even remember how many, can you even name 10 of them?
I'll tell you.
Nobody knows what they were doing. Because we have here a permanent secretary who is the accounting officer. We have a CS who was given more or less an executive role by Uhuru in Uhuru's administration, by the way. And these two people, between them, were doing most of the work. And then there's a situation where, to again, similarly, the former president circumvented the law by creating, within one ministry, several PSs. You create now, for example, infrastructure, you create a PS infrastructure, previous housing for road, within one ministry. So you have 4 PSs. A minister has got 4 permanent secretaries assisting him, 2 permanent secretaries assisting him. Do you really need a CS?
Now, I'll help you on that.
I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
But on that very point, for me, the dominance of a substantive seat holder brings in the curse of a deputy. It's not necessarily about the CAS position. World over, deputies are usually curtain raisers. I mean, they are not visible
Flower
enough.
girls.
They are flower girls. I was really trying to avoid that. Well over. And I really like what the president has done today by being specific on the roles of his deputy. Stop looking at it from this particular angle of only the CAS. Trust me, had the president not given a directive on what particular roles his deputy was doing, even our own constitution is messy. It says a principal assistant of the president. So there is no other role that is specific. That is why there was no, there was no visible responsibility by the CAS. But backdoor, there were. Look at CS Mwangangi, who was helping health. I mean, really, who doesn't know her in this country? Out of the way she really was very active, moving around.
It was out by the pandemic.
Not just by the pandemic, the other health matters. But I'll then give you others. This dominance.
Ababu Namwamba
Was CAS for foreign affairs. You would see him doing a lot, moving around. But again, this culture of wanting to see someone on TV, then make a judgment that this person is
actually working.
Is what is even messing.
But how do you answer the question of cost? Because this government, yes, came to office on the simple question that we have run down the economy and we cannot sustain ourselves. But then, the way that government, and the president is on record actually, that the government needs to live within its means. This is the same structure that Uhuru had. So there's nothing of difference here.
No. There is much difference. You have a huge farm for you to tilt. And what you're doing, for you to lower the kind of effort every person puts into there, you, instead of having 2 people, get 4 people. The work that was to be done for 5 days is then done in 2 days. So there's so much to look at. The work that you want to do for a year, you'll be able to do for 4 months. But I'll commit, before Honorable Kibagendi, interject, I'll commit to you. I have had numerous interactions with His Excellency the President, not just myself and several others. And I have to tell you this, that this is a man on a mission. These things that you've been seeing, the cosmetic sentiments that you've been hearing in the past 10 years about we will change, and it doesn't happen. Now he's in charge. You're going to see real action. These things about the life, the cost of living and stuff like that, does not really start and end within overheads of the executive. Really. There are so many other things. There are elements of, taxation. There are loopholes that need to be covered. There was state capture and stuff like that. Lower cost of living through lowering taxation so that you get masses paying taxes instead of charging everything, excise duty and stuff like that. You lower some things, make it lower, let people enjoy paying taxes, then let them see services. That is what the president is doing.
What I don't agree with you is the reason why we are in this hall, the huge public debt, the high taxes, is because of the budget deficits that we've been having consistently for the last 10 years, ranging almost 9 to 10%. And that simply means government spending was so high. And one of the best solutions to address the public government spending is to rationalize public service. Rationalization means you reduce some of the ministries, you reduce some of the all those, because the more you expand government, the more expenditure. Because if you put a CAS is not one person. He's going to need secretaries, he's going to need vehicles, he's got a cost center. So, so unless you start, this government starts thinking in terms of rationalizing its expenditure, reducing its spending significantly, we will never get out of this hole. I'm telling you, he'll be forced to borrow next month, and he'll borrow the other month, and it will be the same thing. What they need to do now is start with this, because this will give an indication. You say, my government is going to be lean. My government is going, so you start by demonstrating on disappointments. Then you go to the motor vehicles. You go to the lifestyles, the way, the conspicuous consumption of government offices. They're better furnished than this one. So I think unless you reduce public expenditure, reduce some of those expenses, we are not going to get out of this.
Actually,
yes.
Same question. This question of CAS. Why is it important? Why must we have CASs?
The president is under pressure to reward loyalists, with positions that he probably promised during the campaign period. That is one. Number two, there are of course some departments or ministries that may need more than one head in terms of the positions at the top. That is necessary. But again, if you look at it from the point that Senator Bill Okero has alluded to, we need to watch our expenditure. We need to reduce on the number of people we are bringing into the payroll. We need to decrease the number of people that will be driving around with the fuel guzzlers. They'll need security. They'll need T-girls. They'll need messengers. They'll need PAs. And you know, all that increases the amounts that Kenyans are paying for in terms of human resource that would have gone to development. And that is what is affecting most counties today. They are bloated. Yeah? People are, like in Kisii County, the other day the governor was doing a roll call where we have about 800 drivers against 200 vehicles. Was it 250 drivers against 86 vehicles? Yeah. Although, you know, like an ambulance, you must have 3 drivers. The governor has 2-3 drivers. But what we are trying to say, we don't need to have a bloated government. We don't need to, and this can actually happen later once we have kind of recovered from where we are, from the position that he has found this country in. But the other thing I would like to say is that, genuinely speaking, unlike what I saw in the Uhuru government, the president has tried to spread the opportunities across the country in terms of the CSS. Yes, Mount Kenya and Rift Valley has the bulk of it, but he has tried to touch here and there. What I expected us to talk about is the potential or CVs of the individual CSs that have been appointed today in line with the ministries that they've been given. Are they going to perform? Or was it just political gifting? You know, you just give someone because they did this and that. Do they have the necessary, I don't want to call them qualifications, but potential, wherewithal to be able to actually perform in those ministries? You know,
are you convinced that
there are some that look like they'll be able to do their job? Of course, those that I saw in the political arena when we were in the field are people who had a lot of energy, people who are serious performers, including even those who fail. Even Honorable Aisha Jumwa is very hardworking, you know. But now these other individuals that have been brought in are people we haven't seen in the political arena or even in the civil service for some of them. So we are hoping they'll be able to do something special.
See, it is the same thing that we are fighting against for the youth in support of the youth.
By the way, sorry, Honorable Sylvanus Osoro, do we have youth in that cabinet?
What is your...
The CS is a youth. The CS for youth is a youth.
Who?
No, he's not a youth. He's youthful.
He's just youthful.
He's youthful. Is within the age bracket that
the young people who propelled this government into power have not been given opportunities in the cabinet.
You have an answer. You actually say it very well, that appointments are not, this is not the end of appointments. And by the way, have you noticed that the minister, the CS for devolution wasn't named? And
but you've done 22 ministries already.
Because
no, devolution, in my view, should not be a ministry. I think Uhuru was misled into appointing, because devolution, the constitution has various organs and institutions that look after the relationship, the intergovernmental relationships between the two levels of government. For example, the summit, for example, IPEC, for example.
I'm agreeing with you.
Many. So you don't, because the role of that devolution ministry was coordinating really between the two, and it's
a duplication of roles.
In fact, they were doing nothing, frankly.
No, it was supposed to be a transition thing.
Yeah, you don't need it.
And
you don't need it.
Constitutionally, it was supposed to be transition. That 2013, remember, you know,
yes,
it simply happened very fast. 2010 Constitution, 2013, we've got governors. There ought to be an interlink.
There are institutions provided for in the
exactly.
Constitution for coordinating the relationship between the two levels of government.
But then, of
ministry
course,
is not necessary.
but it was there anyway.
Yeah.
It is not there here today.
Yeah.
But there's something I wanted to tell Honorable Kiba. The youth, you see, as I said, government, like, I do not know what exactly Honorable Kiba and all of us want. You do not want the CAS position, but you do not, you want to see youth in government. I mean, really, where do you want us to place them? You've got
In a
to
CS
support this
position,
youth.
perhaps.
In a CS position,
Why not?
perhaps.
Now, look, we've been able to kill at least one hurdle of gender.
You
that
haven't.
really has been an issue all through. And we've been able to at least mitigate the youthfulness by having a youthful, because Honorable Ababu is not old per se. He's within
He's
the
not
bracket.
youth.
But he's within the bracket.
He's 45. He's not
No,
youth.
he's not 45. Are you youth yourself?
No, I'm not. Now I've graduated. Yeah. We wanted to see young people who propelled this government into power, appointed as CS for...
You will see PSS as several PSS as young people. By the way, Honorable Murkomen is not an old man, he's a young man. For the record, yes. Honorable Murkomen is a young man.
Okay, he's not youth. He's youthful.
No, he's below 40. Honorable Murkomen is below 40.
Yes, but now...
Exactly.
That is
That
not
is a youth.
In our definition, you know, in our
I do
definition,
not
in
know
this
what
country, we
definition
look
you-
at those below 35 as youth. Of
Youth.
course, the UN definition is something else. Even me, I'm a youth. If you look
The
at
UN definition
it's
actually
crazy.
places it at 45.
Even more nowadays. But I think, I think, like you said, probably there is need to. These things are very complex because I remember Uhuru was challenging on this question. You know, why is he appointing very old?
But just for the record, Murkomen is 43 years. So, yeah,
So
our friend here is you know, trading in a bit elasticity of truth. But please make your point.
Yeah,
We'll not revisit that.
Yeah, you remember Uhuru had this same challenge.
Yeah.
He was asked why he was appointing retired 80-year-old, 90-year-old people to, you know, especially when he appointed Professor Awori to something.
chairman.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, look, this thing, I need experience, one. Two, he also needed people with a track record and, who, you know, integrity and so many other things. So perhaps some of the challenges we have in this country is that sometimes you look at age and this, gender and these things, and they don't necessarily work well. We have had, you know, those considerations, and you ended up again not achieving what you wanted to do.
Although
So
there's another parameter to look at it on this whole thing. William Ruto has really supported several young people for political seats. And as it is right now, several members of, including myself, members of, because I'm still within youth. No, I'm not youthful. I'm a youth. He's youthful.
Yes.
Because he's my elder.
like Toto.
And, sorry?
Like Toto, there's a lady called Toto.
Yeah, Toto. You can imagine, it's William Ruto supported Toto to become women rep from Bomet. We've got
Sylvanus,
Japheth Nyakundi from Kitutu Church North. Entirely supported by William Ruto. I mean, actually a miracle, you know, in Gusii, the guy who was able to eject out
the longest serving.
A man you used to call in the National Assembly the grandfather of the House, the longest serving in Parliament for 27 years. Now we've got the women rep for Kirinyaga, youth, fully supported by William Ruto.
And some nominations.
And several other nominations.
Yes.
We actually need not to look at it from simple one line. There has been a platform for us. William Ruto supported us all through. Let's now allow at least a gender, you know, gap to be filled. At least even in cabinet, we're able to meet the two-thirds rule. You know, there are so many other parameters. Give it to him, it's been fair.
Gentlemen.
But you know, they're very enterprising young people in 20s or even 30s who are very enterprising, very powerful, very active. If they were given opportunities like this, they would probably do better than even some of the older.
When you look at my position, possibly like the chief whip position, it has never been held by a youth, by a young man. In fact, when I was being subjected for voting in Naivasha, one of my undoing was my youthfulness, my age. They were saying, will you really manage? Because your predecessors were all above 50. Will you really manage to, how will you convince, you know, people like Honorable Ahmed Yusuf, you know, How will you talk to him? He's, I think, I'm almost 70, and I need to whip him. So there are so many things that we... So there has been an opportunity, you know, provided for us in Kenya Kwanza government, and we must support it.
Gentlemen, final thoughts. 100 days, what do you expect? If you come back in 100 days, what do you think?
In 100 days, of course, some of us are still healing from the loss
from the beating.
From the beating. But we still thank God that we have a peaceful country. And still, we appreciate that we have Kenyans who are resilient, Kenyans who are patient. We are hoping in 100 days we'll be more cohesive than we are today, because you know, we had 6.9 million people voting for Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, and they didn't get what they wanted. So what I would urge the president right now and the government is to try and unite Kenyans. That is what is important. Number two, they need to reduce on the aggressive ridiculing of those who lost the elections. That does not make, will make us not to heal as soon as is required. And number three, I still appreciate that the president has demonstrated that we are praying for this country, the prayers we had at State House, and what he's doing to try and do, and even the appointments of the CSS to try and demonstrate that he's trying to bring the country together, trying to get CSS from every part of the country, every region. That was good. But in 100 days, they'll not be able to do much in terms of what they had promised, but we'll give them up to even 6 months to see what they'll actually do.
For you, Sylvanus?
100 days, number one, is quite a short time to gauge any government. Actually, since we were elected, myself and Honorable Kibagandi, it's been 100 days, almost, no, it's been 60 days, thereabouts. So we're only short of 40 days short of 100. And I can tell you, he has not appointed, he's not been very active on, you know, issues to do with, he's not a CDF committee. He hasn't pushed anything to do with the constituency office and stuff like that. And things are not moving yet. So 100 days is quite a short time for one to define a government. However, 100 days are enough to constitute, or rather to set pace and create a picture on what we'll be focusing in the next 2 or 3 years, thereabout. What I expect is what I've seen. Appointment of the CSS, next is the PSS. It will, of course, happen within 100 days. And then other mitigation measures that kill the subsidy of fuel, increase the subsidy of fertilizer, so that, of course, to project the heavy rains in the other regions and stuff like that for purposes of food security. That is what will happen within 100 days. And what he said about healing the country, it is indeed true. I mean, really, we all live in this country. 6.9 people voted for Raila Odinga. So there has to be, you know, harmony. The president must appear like, and so far he's done that, must appear like a unifying factor, doing rounds the country and telling Kenyans, thank you. I mean, whether you voted for me or not, I'm your president and stuff like that. That is what we need to hear within 100 days, and cohesion for purposes of moving forward. And I'm happy that you're in the right trajectory, and especially through the prayers that we saw yesterday.
Bill Okero, you're the elder in the room, please.
They prayed their way into power.
They
continue praying
until...
So I think in terms of the unity, I don't think there's a I think many Kenyans have moved on, except the political you know, leaders who are still but the people have moved on. I don't think that's a problem. But I think what I would want to see, Osoro, is now that the cabinet has been set up, the next thing is when Parliament resumes on Monday, on Thursday, is it? Thursday this week, and the names will be now submitted. So in the next week or two, they get the cabinet in place, and the president needs to move immediately. One of the things they need to do is to review the budget, because they are allowed under the PFM Act, you know, to review the budget, which was prepared by the previous government, and bring some of the issues that can be addressed quickly. For example, there's a ravaging drought in 23 counties. People are suffering. and the government needs to allocate some of that money that has been, put in for various projects. It needs to shove some of these infrastructure things and put money where people need them urgently. For example, if you are in a drought area, whether you are given some rice or beans that they were sending off yesterday, it's not going to help. You've got kids to go to school and you need school fees. So waive the school fees in some of these regions, provide some emergency measures in some of these areas, and they can do that by adjusting the budget. He needs to address the issue of unga and fuel. They're not going to go away anytime soon, because the fertilizer, by the time you get that maize, it will be 6 months much. I mean, and fertilizer, by the way, has always been addressed, and it has never solved the issue of the price, the high cost of maize in this country, because there are so many other inputs. There is the diesel, there is the tractors, the cost of services generally are very expensive. Even when they have harvested, they want the government to provide them a good price when the cereal board is buying for them before they sell to the millers. So I think it's going to be a challenge, but I think they need to start looking at the budget from their government and start hitting the hustlers fund. People want to see how those guys who are struggling will start getting money immediately. They don't want to wait to the next budget of 2023. So I think they have their work cut out for them, and they need to be out of the honeymoon next week when the names have been approved by Parliament.
Hopefully they can get out shortly. But with all respect, before we go, former Malindi MP Aisha Juma has today been nominated by President William Ruto to be the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service and Gender. Juma is not a stranger to the public. She recently lost gubernatorial challenge of Kilifi and has been a member of Parliament for 2 terms at least. She also is a classic Chapter 6 challenge politician, or as we prefer to call it in this country, political correct term, comes with some personal challenges. First, Aisha Juma is accused of embezzling 19 million of Malindi Constituency Development Fund, popular known as CDF. The prosecution argues in court that Juma had consistently used the CDF fund as a slush fund to prop up her flashy lifestyle. Malindi, which is in Kilifi, is one of the poorest counties in Kenya. Reports say Kilifi County leads in teenage pregnancy, and its children before 5 years are at greatest risk of malnutrition and death. Now, this graft case has faced numerous roadblocks. The last was just before the August elections, where Aisha Juma asked the court to postpone the case, saying that campaigns for a candidature were hectic and time-consuming. She also told the court that one of her lawyers, Cliff Ombeta, is also on the campaign trail, campaigning for himself, and his absence would adversely affect her defense. Through her lawyer, Danstan Omari, Juma also said her opponents would use this court case to de-campaign her, whatever that means. Away from the graft case, though, Aisha Juma also faces murder charges. The former MP, now CS nominee, is accused of causing the death of Gumbao Jola during the Ganda ward by-election in Malindi constituency in 2019. According to police records, Juma arrived at the home of ODM candidate Ganda ward by-election Ruben Katana in a convoy of 3 vehicles, claiming the aspirant was conducting a campaign meeting after the deadline given by the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, IEBC. One of the 5 witnesses, Alfred Kahindi, told Judge Anne Oginjo that at the fateful day, Juma Ruben Katana's home, where a meeting was taking place, and accused police officers of not executing her orders to bar the meeting. He said Juma threatened to execute the order herself, ordering her supporters to burn down the host's house. The confrontation turned ugly and led to the shooting of Jola, who was pronounced dead upon arrival at the Malindi County Hospital. This case, like the graft case, has had hiccups, and now the new CS will even have a lot on her plate to attend to such matters. It is instructive to note that Parliament will now take on the work of processing the President's nominee, checking on her fitness to serve such high office together with the rest. I leave you now with very good footage of the CS. But first, thank my panel for tonight, Sylvanus Osoro, South Mugirango Majority Whip, or Minority Whip, however it's politically correct. Anthony Kibagendi, Kitutu Chache South, Member of Parliament. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And Bilokero, former Senator, Mandera County. Gentlemen, thank you very much. With all due respect, have a lovely night.
Thank you.
Thank you.